Hello everyone, Markystal here, and I just wanted to do a quick little video going over Microsoft's recent announcement of their augmented reality headset, the HoloLens, which you can see here in the image towards the right. So I'm pretty sure you guys must be wondering what my overall thoughts on this are, since it seems to be a pretty impressive piece of tech. And to put it lightly, I'm highly impressed. It looks really cool, and I'm amazed that Microsoft managed to keep this much information about it hidden, even though they're generally well known for having things leak out at the very least a little bit ahead of time. So it's just rather impressive that they managed to pull this off. Maybe it's the whole association with NASA and the whole super secrecy policy thing. But anyhow, yeah, it looks like some pretty impressive technology. For those of you that aren't aware, augmented reality is a sister technology to virtual reality, where the goal of virtual reality is to make reality virtual, or in other words, to make us, the users, perceive a virtual world as though it is reality. And the goal of augmented reality is to make us perceive the virtual world as though it's a part of this reality, or in other words, to bring the virtual world to reality. It's almost a little bit of an opposite case, but overall they are heavily considered to be related to each other, and in general they're both going to play a significant role in the way we do things in general in the future with regards to technology and user interfacing in general. So, for those of you wondering, what's the big deal with this thing? I mean, didn't Google try to do some stuff with this? Well, overall, it's just generally how powerful this thing actually is that's really gotten people in a tizzy. I mean, overall, they are announcing, just a heck ton of different features for this technology. They just leave most tech enthusiasts just awestricken at how much you're capable of doing. So just to cover some of the basics, this thing is using a new form of display. I believe it involves holograms in some capacity within a small field generated within the lenses. I'm not too sure exactly how it works. I'd probably need to do a little bit more research into it. And it seems that this seems to have been done with a little bit of collaboration with NASA. So it seems Microsoft has been really working hard on this to make sure that it's the very best that it can be. But overall, it seems, by some of the impressions I saw in the Oculus forum, that this may not entirely be completely crazy new, super scientific, crazy VR leap motion technology in 1 second. But overall, it just has me curious, since this is the second piece of AR technology that we've seen that has shown itself off with some incredibly high fidelity looking demos. But that's just one aspect of this device. In conjunction with this device is bearing a lot of high-end technology under its hood. As you can see right here with these two little cameras here, they are apparently 120-degree FOV cameras that are capable of recording and keeping track of motions in space, similarly to the Kinect, at a high speed using the headset's internal hardware. Which, do keep in mind, they were very specific about having some rather high-end CPUs and GPUs inside of this, including a new form of processing unit they're calling an HPU, or a holographic processing unit, whereas some people call it HPU. But, yeah, it just looks kind of interesting. I'm not too sure entirely what I think about that whole HPU processor, especially with regards to battery life, since they also announced that there are no cords, no phones, no wires, no tethers. Yeah, I wonder how heavy that thing's going to be with a huge battery to make sure it doesn't die out in like 5 minutes. But anyhow, it's just kind of interesting to see exactly how powerful that technology is going to be under the hood. And in addition, I'm also very curious about that motion tracking technology, since it seems to be rather high fidelity. I mean, there's this video here where we can see the motion tracking be used in some capacity, trying to use gestures in order to manipulate this items in the augmented reality space. Well, I'm kind of curious as to why they never actually try to somewhat touch the objects themselves, but anyhow, that's just me being a little nitpicky. But yeah, it looks extremely interesting, and I'm very curious as to what's going on there, and they're even including the addition of augmented or virtual reality sound, or 3D sound as it's called. So apparently you'd be able to hear an augmented reality object coming up behind you, which kind of makes me wonder as to what the horror game applications of something like this would be. So yeah, overall, this technology seems to be rather impressive, and I'm genuinely surprised Microsoft decided to debut this. Although it does kind of make me understand a little bit better what's going on with them and Fove, a company that's developing their own virtual reality headset. You guys might recall in a video I did earlier covering some VR news that there's a company called Fove that was purchased and is being supported by Microsoft, which is basically aiming to create a Oculus Rift or virtual reality HMD that supports eye tracking. And in addition to the actual body or movement tracking, it can also tell where we're looking. I believe it's demonstrated in one of these videos here. I suggest just trying to look it up all online. There's just tons and tons of footage on the HoloLens being covered. But it appears to have some pretty high fidelity eye tracking, so not only does it know what gestures you're performing, but it can also see where you're seeing and know what to emphasize. So this could potentially show some applications for things such as foveated rendering, whereby you only render the things that the eye is directly looking at and ignore or lower the resolution on everything else. This is a processing technique that has been very pursued for a little while due to its potential gains in processing power, since can you imagine only having to render like 3 or 5% of the screen at maximum resolution while the rest is basically like 480 or 1080p? That would be a significant improvement for the overall efficiency of processing power. And for a device like this, which was intended to be mobile, I can definitely see where the saving of processing power would definitely be something that they would want to emphasize. So overall, it looks like this is going to be pretty impressive, but I'm generally more of a virtual reality guy, so what's up with the AR talk? Well, this is the thing. The moment a lot of people saw this technology, a lot of eyes were also set towards the Rift. It's like, how does this compare to something like the Oculus Rift? And based upon the impressions I've been hearing, it is another one of those wow technologies where you try it and it's like, holy snap, this looks awesome, or this is crazy. But in terms of actual correlation of that experience to virtual reality, that's where things kind of get a little bit divided. Because it seems that while this technology is pretty impressive, by the seams of it, it might not necessarily have stereoscopic 3D, if I recall. I can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, I'm still trying to look up the information on this myself, but yeah, it seems that it might not have the exact sense of depth that something like the Oculus Rift provides. Although, being holograms, I wouldn't be surprised if it does have depth, so don't really quote me on that one. Just look into it yourselves. But it does seem, though, that the FOV that was announced, the 120, is only for the cameras. The FOV of the device itself, it seems, is much smaller. I recall in particular an article saying something along the lines of, the FOV can't really be compared to something like virtual reality. This is really small. So it's almost making me kind of think of the Sony HMZ line, whereby it's kind of like a portable movie theater where you have a display in the middle, except it has a relatively small FOV. So even though that might not be VR, that certainly definitely has its own applications, and I'm really curious as to how they're going to work with that. But yeah, so long as it maintains an FOV below 80, it's unlikely this is going to be any serious or major threat towards something like an Oculus Rift or other virtual reality headsets being developed at this moment in time. But alas, that's probably not what it even really needs to target, since, as I said, guys, augmented reality is its own real medium, and it's definitely something whereby you can see the applications. Some of the ideas that Microsoft was positing during their conference included things such as having an expanded virtual workspace, or having the ability to interact with your 3D models in the real space using your own physical motions. I mean, look at this. This image alone basically sums things up. You can play Minecraft using this. I mean, look at this sheep. You know, if Microsoft bought Minecraft just for the purpose of this image, I think they've made a pretty good choice, because that just looks so cool. It's almost like the Lego Minecraft, except even more awesome. But yeah, it just looks pretty awesome that they're trying to pull something like this off, and it really goes to show that there's a lot of applications. I mean, look at something like this where you have your recipes and stuff like that on one area, the weather. I recall during the footage over here, I believe, at one stage they had a hologram up of their boss, I believe, and he was a small little hologram man that only, here it is, it's at around the 16-minute mark. Yeah, there he is. He's basically just a 3D scanned image, and he's right there as a hologram. Although, it should be noted, though, everyone, the only people that can see this are the people wearing the headset. Everybody else is just going to be looking at you like, what are you doing? Yeah, that's one of the things I kind of dislike personally about augmented reality. It's one of those technologies where an onlooker has a complete and utter just disconnection to what you're doing, but you're on some tangential level still interacting with reality, so you just kind of look like a crazy person. But if a lot of people are wearing it, it should look pretty cool to interact with, and there's definitely some productivity applications. I mean, just look at this. If I had the ability to 3D model right now using my own physical body using this, I would immediately just start looking for any way I can get the funds to get my own unit of this, because yeah, using Blender, a mouse, and a tablet, along with Sculptress and a few other programs, isn't exactly the most convenient, comfortable, or efficient process. So yeah, guys, that more or less sums up most of my thoughts on this technology. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, and this, in addition to that Magic Leap technology that Google was talking about, really makes me wonder whether or not we're going to be seeing augmented reality hit the fore just before virtual reality. I mean, guys, it's been almost 3 years since the Oculus Rift was first more or less shown into the public thanks to John Carmack and the release of the Kickstarter. So it's really making me wonder how much longer we're going to have to wait before virtual reality can really start hitting up the fore. I mean, even I've slowed down a lot of my plans and a lot of my predictions on virtual reality as a result of some of the things I've experienced thanks to the development environment and some of my observations of just the general state of the technology at this moment in time. So hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of this stuff and VR and all the other advances in technology in general, because guys, we live in an extremely awesome time. I mean, how crazy is it that we can have stuff like this just plain old be a potential reality within, but possibly this year? I mean, Microsoft was saying that we should expect this device as a consumer product within the lifetime or in the time span of Windows 10, which we aren't exactly sure whether or not that means during the Windows 10 generation, as in the 4 or 5 years this operating system's going to have, or 3 years, or whether or not they mean around the time it launches, launch window, launch day maybe. So yeah, it's just going to be rather interesting to see. Just before I cut this off, guys, there is one more concern I kind of have in regards to this technology, and that's really the price tag. I mean, apparently this is some pretty advanced and sophisticated technology involving 3 processors in one single system, likely being proprietary and very specific, and in all likelihood also being very expensive to produce, since it's really only known that Microsoft and NASA are really looking into this. So it really makes me wonder exactly what kind of prices we're seeing for the so-called consumer release. Because, yeah, even though I'm a big fan of the things that I'm seeing, if that price tag is anywhere upwards of the 1,000 or the 750 or nah, never mind, more around the 1,000 mark. If it's above the 1,000 mark, this is going to be a pretty tough sell in my case. I mean, Google Glass was not too long ago, and that was also pretty impressive technology. But so far, I do believe that Google's phased it out and isn't selling it anymore. And it didn't exactly catch on like a wildfire like everyone was expecting. Maybe this will fare better due to being a little bit more advanced, but I highly doubt that I'd want to go out in public wearing something like this. Do remember to rate, comment, share, and subscribe if you want to help out the channel, guys. And I apologize for the delay on other videos. I have a few other things I'm going to be doing, and I have an update video, actually, that's going to be released pretty soon, more or less telling you guys what I think or what I'm doing in the background. So you guys have an idea exactly what's been going on for the past couple of weeks that I haven't been posting much content. Thank you very much for watching this video. This has been MarkystalVR, everyone, logging out.